Good morning, everybody. Thank you for your patience. You ready, Karen?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting of the Human Services Committee to order. Please call the roll.
Do you want to?
Well, after
do
the
it
roll
after.
call,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, Chair Swarzy,
Here?
Member Childress.
Yes.
Member Garcia. Here. Member Desart, Member Galassi, Member LaPlante.
Okay, due to not having a quorum, I am going to appoint Member Guston to this committee today. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
Do we have any public comment?
No public comment.
Okay. I have no specific remarks today. Any of our committee members have anything they'd like to share? No? Okay, thank you. I will start off by taking a motion to approve the minutes, item 24-3086 from the Human Services Committee regular meeting from Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. We had a motion, a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now we get to recognize, like we do so often in this committee, a length of service award. So I'd like to present Janelle Chadwick along with Christine Klebon to recognize Christine's 30 years at the DuPage Care Center. So take it away.
All right. We're very fortunate today to have Christine Klebon here. We are celebrating her 30th year. Yeah, Christine has had many roles. I'm going to talk about some of the roles she's had since she's been here. So she started in 1987 as a secretary to Gary King in the county clerk's office. Then she stayed home to be a stay-at-home mom, came back, and then she worked in county purchasing, now procurement, as a staff assistant. She worked for facilities management as a financial analyst 1. And then the care center had the pleasure of gaining her in 2007 as a financial analyst 2. So she's been here in a long time in a lot of different roles. But what her biggest, I think, contribution to what we do at the care center, we are very focused on expenses, obviously staying within our contract. She's very good at keeping the department heads in line, but we do a budget control log. So they know what they have to work with at the beginning of the year, and then every invoice gets subtracted from that. So each leader knows exactly what they have to work with. And if they don't, somebody's going to remind them. So she is, when you look at our fund balance, Christine has played a big role in making that happen. So we appreciate her greatly. Thanks.
We would love to hear.
I just want to say thank you. It means a lot to be recognized for my dedication here. I've had many opportunities and it's benefited my family. I love everybody I work with. I am a people person. I'm just thrilled. When I came to the care center, I was a little nervous because that whole lifestyle, you have to learn a little bit about it. But how fortunate to be able to do your job and then still have the perk to interact with residents and everybody, the team, they're my family. I love getting up, coming to work every day. We just are a great team, all the manager. I mean, we just really, if somebody takes a day off, you're kind of bummed, like, where are they? Our day's not gonna be as successful as it was before, but I love everybody here. Procurement, thank you. You guys are here. They've been where I'm a liaison between the departments, and I feel the same way about them too, and some of our finance teams. So thank you very much.
Sit down. Any members would like to make any comments?
I'd just like to thank you so much. It sounds like you have been a benefit wherever you work in the county. And so I think the county, we are blessed to have you as a great employee. So thank you for your time here. And continue time.
Yes.
And what, 30 years anywhere, you know, just in life is such a long time. And so just the experience and the value that you bring to the county, it's just amazing. And so thank you for spending your time. And we'd like to do a picture with the county board and the staff.
Sure.
And you, of course. Anybody that wants to come up and get in a picture that works with Christine is welcome to come on up.
Want me to put on the chair?
I need to tell them.
Well, I need a photographer. Oh, Evan, you got it? Okay, good.
Sorry.
What do you think, Evan?
Slide over here.
You might have to turn a little at an angle. That you, Christine.
Okay. There's things I like this one too.
Anybody that wants to come up?
Come on up.
All the staff. Come
Yes.
on.
Anybody that works with her?
Everybody good?
Right here.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, cheese. Everybody say care center.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Just like you magically do it.
That's really. Thank
Did I need to bring you up to say a few things?
No.
Sorry,
Just
I'm
for
sorry.
we just wanted to give her a couple
Okay,
flowers,
okay.
that's all, thank you. Have a good night.
Okay, on to our, back to our agenda. I need a motion to approve item HSP 5324, awarding resolution issued to WellSky Corporation for renewal of the annual homeless management information system software and cloud services contract, renewal of licenses, training, support, and custom programming for the period November 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2025 for a contract total not to exceed $52,948.90. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve FIR 21624, the revision to the personnel budget.
Motion, second, whatever.
Motion.
We got a motion by member Garcia and a second by member Garcia. Second by member Glassy. Sorry, member Guston. Any discussion?
Quick question. I'm assuming the salary range has gone up and this is the need for this modification.
No, the modification is the addition of a new head count.
Oh, a new head count. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
it's the same salary range as the current planners.
Okay, just an additional body.
It's an additional person due to a new funding source.
Great. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Take a motion to approve FIR 22024, acceptance and appropriation of the Illinois Association of Community
moved.
Action Agencies Employment Barrier Reduction Pilot Program for program year 25 in the amount of $46,000. Do we have any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Take a motion for FIR 22324, acceptance of an extension of time for the community project funding environmental review records for program year 24
Moved.
Second.
from November 30th, 2024 to November 30th, 2025. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'll take a motion to approve FIR 22424, acceptance and appropriation of the community project funding environmental review records for program year 25 in the amount of $19,000. Did we have a motion a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Presentation for the DuPage County Care Center building renovation update. So Janelle Chadwick, I'll turn this over to you.
Kick us off. Would you rather have me here or up at that end? What's better? All right. So we sent some photos, but we wanted to give you a more in-depth update on our project scope and ARPA allocations. So next slide. So if you recall, we were approved November 9th for a $31 million project. Over 83% of it was ARPA funded at that time. The other came from Care Center or from CDBG or from the Kenneth Moy Fund, just for to bring you up to speed. Next slide. So the north building is done. You've heard me talk about the residents coming on to that floor and how happy they are to have the refreshed rooms. We just had executive resident council yesterday, and again, they were talking about how wonderful it is and how vested they are in keeping it nice. So they'll tell me when there's a little nick in the paint in any little corner that we might need a bumper guard. So they're really good about letting me know opportunities to keep it looking as good as it does. The nurse station replacement at level 4, the staff have increased space and a very inviting feel. The entry lobby is just completed, and that sense of openness is huge. So when we have residents waiting for to go out for appointments or to go out for dialysis, they're not sitting on top of each other, which if you recall, the state had a big issue with that without that ability to social distance. So it's very, very welcoming. The exterior is phenomenal. We look like a care center. We look like a health environment. We don't look like an office building. So we're really proud of that. It gives us the grand entrance that we've been missing. So I'm just gonna walk through a few pictures. Some of these I may have included in prior. So this is 4 North. You can see the before, you can see the after. That's the resident common area. That's where they dine. So it gets pretty full. With our COVID outbreaks, haven't been able to get back to using our main resident dining room for breakfast and dinner every day. We do it Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we're hopefully gonna get back to that on a regular basis. Next slide. That nurses station, if anyone remembers that blue nurses station, it looked like it should have been in a horror movie, the way it was all scratched. So you can see the difference. I said, if anywhere, we're starting on 4, just to get rid of that nurses station. The next, you can see the resident rooms, how nice that cabinetry is, and all of the, we put a magnetic board above each bed so they can add their own pictures and whatnot, right there in their own rooms. Next. This is what's under construction now. So we're now at 3 North. You can see the lovely orange will be going away, or actually is gone, and you can see they're well underway. They're actually doing paint and flooring right now, so that picture's a little outdated. The ceiling's all in. They're moving along at a really great clip. 3 Center has been one of the areas that I've really struggled with. This is a dementia wing, and they really like the space, the openness, the home environment and programming to really be conducive to that diagnosis and disease. So that current picture doesn't even do it justice. It is all open. We were able to get rid of those windows that used to be exterior windows. If you see those frames, those are all gone, and there'll be just a wall there with a nice granite top. So we found some really interesting brick in the walls from very, very old days. So I think we tried to salvage a couple pieces. We'll see. We'll put it somewhere as a memory. Then you'll see this is the main lobby coming in. The gift shop is to the left, and you can see what it looked like and what it looks like now. And then there's the front entry.
It's a big difference.
It's huge, huge. And last week we did the flag raising. We had the VETSO group come. And so we did our flag raising out there. So it was a really great ceremony. And then the lobby, you can see how beautiful it is. Remember, we took out that room there with that door to your right. We took out that whole area all the way back to those double doors. So it's just it's unbelievable. It is. So with that, let's see, is there another picture? I'm gonna ask Tim to come up, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about scope.
Good morning, everybody. How you doing? I want to stress, I've asked Janelle to interrupt me as I go through this because she can add a lot of things. She knows the building better than anybody. When you do a project of this magnitude, there are shifting scopes, shifting workloads that occur as the project progresses. And we're going to go through that today. What I want to stress to you is if you agree with us at the end of the day, we're going to decrease the scope a little bit. So it will actually get smaller. We're not asking for more money today. But really, there's kind of 3 reasons why there's shifting changes. I'm going to have more details in each one of these slides. First ones are unforeseen, primarily asbestos and IDPH has added scope to us. There's improvements and efficiencies we wanted to do during construction. I'm going to go through that. And then the third piece we have for you is there are 6 rooms that we didn't touch during the process. As we're literally working right by them, we want to add that scope. In order to fund this, we want to eliminate the east building from the current scope. So the east building will be addressed in the future. That'll be addressed for you in 2025. So we're proposing a net decrease in the contracts. But I'm going to go through each one of these pieces in more details. So next slide, please. First one is some of the ads we have. Asbestos abatement was just at $750,000. That was in the north building. That was missed, and respectfully, with the age of that building, I should have caught that. But just as we got started, we found the asbestos. We did the abatement. It was primarily in the mastic and the flooring, which was common in the building at this age. IDPH has added about $750,000 as well. Life safety changes, I'll go through that in the next one. And the last one are changes that we as staff made, both facilities and primarily with Janelle, that really made sense to do these as we go ahead. When we're in the space, it's down. I can assure you that the statement 11 years with Nick has told me more than any other thing is if you're going to do it right. We want to nail these things as we go. We would rather do less or not touch a wing and hit everything else as we go. And then the 6 rooms that we talked about, Those are the 6 rooms that are identified and the cost for each room. As we're there, it's vacated, we want to take care of all those pieces as well. So that's kind of the added scope we want to do. Next slide. These are that $1.5 million, or a summary of some of those costs. The first 2 and 3 were IDPH. First one is the asbestos abatement we mentioned. The next group I can go through with you, but respectfully, most of those are facilities driven. While we're there, it really made sense to do these changes now while we were there. If you want, I can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just jump in on a couple things. So the asbestos abatement, it's in the mastic, so it's in the glue underneath. We could have covered it, but we chose to do the right thing. When you get into the fire dampers, they held us to new construction standards instead of existing construction standards. So when we opened up that wall, we did a couple other things with fire dampers just to make the building that much more safe and compliant with new fire requirements. The exam rooms, if you have a semi-private room in your building, they're saying that you need to have an exam room where the physician can take the resident to this room and do a private exam. No building I've ever been in has these. But because we sent this to IDPH on 4, they required it. I don't think when we sent in the next grouping, they didn't even catch that.
No.
So it's just based on who's looking at it at the time, on what they're finding. So we had to have add an exam room to each of the units. And the nurse call devices, here's a great example. So our nurse call, this is the light that goes on above each resident room when they put their call light on. They're old and antiquated and their parts are becoming obsolete. So we did 4 to give us more parts for 321. But then it looks so nice and we're like, do we really want to redo 321 and have these old things that are going to become obsolete anyway? So let's make that decision to do it now. So that's our thought process. The sprinkler head replacement, those all have to be the same, contiguous. So you can't have an old head, a new head, or a different type of head. They'll come in and make sure that every single sprinkler head is the same model type. So these are all just things that he says unavoidable. I'm sorry, I guess mine said unanticipated.
Sorry,
I said,
okay.
these are unavoidable. These aren't things that we could
We
change.
we lose a quorum, I'm just pointing that out. Okay, sorry. We can keep going, right?
Yeah, keep
But the
going.
presentation.
Got it, okay.
I don't know if you want to touch on anything else
Sure.
in there.
The rest of those are really respective facilities things. Those who went in there, the majority of them were HVAC related. If you went in there, we looked at these units and more detail, everything. It really made sense to it now while the spaces were empty.
Any questions on these things before we go
No,
forward?
I think the nurse notification thing, devices is so important because you get to a certain age.
It gives you our thought process.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a safety issue too for
Yep.
the residents. The asbestos, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
You gotta
Sprinkler
do
head
what you gotta
replacement,
do.
same
Right,
thing.
right.
Same thing.
The system's dry right now.
Right.
It's dry, it's empty. It's super simple to change them out.
Unless you can find some of us cheap.
I'm actually surprised some of these things, especially.
I'm sorry,
more-
Member Childers is trying to say
Oh,
something.
sorry, Michael.
He's trying to find somebody else for him.
Okay.
If you want, you are supposed to be in 2 presentations, go through the remaining votable items.
Yeah, okay.
And
Understood.
Give me, stand by.
Yep.
Understood.
No
Give me 2 more minutes, Michael, we'll get you out of here. I need a motion to approve HSCO 424, amendment to resolution HHSP 30622 issued to White Construction Services, Inc. to provide construction manager at-risk guaranteed maximum price method of delivery for the modernization and upgrades at the Kenneth Moy DuPage Care Center facility to eliminate, this is all the stuff we're talking about.
Yeah.
To eliminate the east wing from scope and various changes in scope to decrease the funding in the amount of $530,327, resulting in a final county cost $29,163,373, a decrease of 1.79%. We had a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, any discussion? Because that's, obviously, that's what they're going over right now.
No.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Take a motion to approve HSCO 524, amendment to resolution HHSP 30522 issued to WSP USA Designing for professional architectural and engineering design services for the modernization and upgrade of the Kenneth Moy DuPage Care Center facility to remove the east wing from scope and decrease the funding in amount of $269,673,000, resulting in a final county cost of $1,536,627, a decrease of 14.93%. I'm sorry, did we get a motion to say? Any discussion here? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Take a motion on consent item 243087, RCM Healthcare Services Contract 70190001 serve. This purchase order is decreasing encumbrance in the amount of $85,000 due to the vendor recently decreasing the amount of staff being provided. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And
Everything else is informational.
we don't need,
No vote.
You don't need to vote, you just receive it.
Oh.
all right, okay. We'll finish the informational after that. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks for jumping in.
And so back to you guys.
Very good.
Back to you.
Now, back to the regular.
Well, and again, but we've just approved it, but we still need the information, so.
We're all old enough to remember that, right?
So I think we're up to the next slide now?
Yes. Right, I believe there's two sides up. We touched on these, we gave you more dollars on these on a previous slide, but these are just the 6 rooms that weren't in the original scope that we're adding.
These are all very, I mean, think about occupational therapy. We do a lot with restorative programming for our residents, so our long-term residents that aren't there under a Medicare short stay. We do a lot of PR programming with them just to retain their current level of function. And so these spaces are used by our long-term residents as well as our short-term residents. But the resident dining room is obviously a big one, the recreation room, and our conference rooms, we utilize them a lot, especially for the community. IDPH would have town hall meetings and used to hold those at the care center. So they're gonna kick those back off, and I want our care center to present. And so those spaces, they're getting pretty beat up because we're moving staff. That's where all of our offices are when our spaces are under construction. And then the laundry renovation is getting new equipment and updating that space because it hasn't been touched in many, many, many years. And then the rehab again is a therapy space, so.
Last slide, you're so efficient. The first one you just took care of. The second one is, as we've eliminated the e-scope. So we want to go on the street for that. We're proposing to go on the street for that literally in 2 weeks with our QBS, quality-based selection. We're proposing to hire an architect and a construction manager, both under one contract. We're estimating that the East building is going to be about $15 million. And we're proposing for the committee and the full board's consideration that we be funded by Care Center reserves.
So you want to talk about, you have questions about
Sure,
that?
sure.
Care Center
What's in the
reserve?
East building?
East building holds about 50, 60 beds on 2 different floors. That's where our short stay is.
Okay.
And I would have loved to have done our short stay first, but it just didn't work well with our timeline. So it's a very important part of our campus that has to be done. We just,
What was any of that, it was, part of that was supposed to be in
Yes.
this,
yes, it just, the cost kind of pushed that project into a different category.
When we did the initial work, we had a maximum funding available at that time. And respectfully, the Care Center reserves were not where they are today. So they have, because of the success, because of the 5-star rating, et cetera, as we wanted to get 100% done, push that off. A few things, we all know what happened with cost of living CPI, 2 years ago from some of this rich work was done. A lot of those pieces all kind of house today.
so the work that we talk about the future, are we talking about next year? Or we're talking about when the rest of the project's done and then go to that?
Right.
Which could be,
In a perfect world, the East building would come just as this existing contract ends. So the
Yeah.
construction
It-
seamlessly
and
keeps
what's
flowing
the
all the way through.
timeline for the current stuff?
Summer of 2026
Okay,
is when the current project will be done. Our goal would be in the March, April timeframe to come to this committee with a proposal to go to do the East building because it will take that long to do the permitting. To do the design and the permitting, bid it out, get the materials in, et cetera. So
is the scope, and please forgive me, I'm asking all these questions. Is the scope of work planned for, say, 2026? Is that the exact same work that was planned that we're putting off?
what we did initially would be like Redstone East building like. A lot of times when we do work, we try and do everything we can. A lot of times we will throttle it back to within the funding that's available, and we throttle the East building back to try and make
Initially.
it fit, correct, within the funding that was available. If you remember, $31.5 million was what we determined was the largest ask based on ARPA availability, based on available funds within the care center, based on the pieces we wanted to do. And so we lighted East.
And my last question real quick, thank you. what percentage is in our reserves right now? Of your-
Percentage
Well,
of this,
No,
if
what
doing this would be a little over 50% of our, doing the east building from our reserves would take about 60% of our reserves.
So my
They're pretty
question
hefty.
is, so based on your operating budget, annual operating budget, what percent of that operating budget do you have in reserves right now? Like if you're at 50%, that's gonna decrease it down to
Our
less than
operating
25%.
budget's about 45 million. This would leave us, by doing this, we would still have probably about 12 million left in reserves after we do the east
So
project.
you're dropping it from around 50% down to
Right.
about 25% or so.
Right, yep.
That's cutting it
I'm
close.
very conservative,
Yeah.
so that's why I want to keep those funds in there. We've done well. We always have to assume, because everything fluctuates. I know Member Krajewski talks a lot about your budget and you're budgeting over what you're really gonna spend. We have a lot of unknowns in our environment. Our rates change on a quarterly basis, and there's like 10 different metrics that drive our rates. So I don't anticipate us changing how we budget. I think it could get tight, and who knows what changes may come down in regulation and how we're reimbursed. But generally, we do very well. That whole conversation about Christine and managing expenses is key. That's key to why we have the fund balance that we have.
Oh,
Just for clarification, so if we wait till 2026, so there's just a seamless construction, your reserves should be more at that point in time, correct?
God willing,
God
but
willing, okay.
I can't say that. It,
Okay,
gets a little
but I think there's a
tighter.
possibility, but we
Yes.
can't count on that,
Right,
okay,
right.
okay. So then you would just be taking, that's where the money would come from
Correct.
completely then?
Yep,
Okay.
it's our own, we would be funding it out of our own budget.
No brainer.
And what is the dollar figure in your reserves right now?
27.
Approximately
approximately.
27 million,
Mhm.
but you're a $45 million operating expense.
Right, but
agency.
yes, so our revenues pretty much match our expenses each year when we do budget.
Thank you.
if the county board does not approve the east wing, that means you gotta live with the east wing.
That would be very difficult for us. From a promotional, from filling our beds, and it's care center funds. It's not
Right, I
like
was
we're
gonna
coming in
say.
asking for more money.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
she's taking it out of her reserve anyway,
Right.
so.
So it's
That-
not
That
coming.
should be a
from the
no.
county.
no
That was
brainer.
staff's approach as we put this together, was we're
Right.
not asking the general fund.
And to me, I've always felt I was optimistic and wrongly so, that the bids would come in at least lower than anticipated a little and not higher every time we open up a bid. And it's just, I mean, if we did it now, if we were starting the project now, would we see lower bids potentially? Potentially, but it just isn't, it's not something we take lightly. We're just very fortunate to have operated the way we have to be able to do this and not have to live with that current state. That's our short stay unit. So our Medicare people come in there and they expect private rooms and private baths, and we can't even give them private baths. We can give them private rooms, but they still are very antiquated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Janelle, just anything else with the
No,
care
I
center?
think I've
Okay.
had enough.
Thank you.
And your ears enough.
Thank you. Mary Keating with our community services update.
There's still some.
Oh, wait.
Oh, did I-
Informational item.
Oh, okay, sorry, Mary, sorry. Okay, I don't need a motion, right?
Yeah, they're informational, so
So-
typically you just go through them and then if there's any discussion from staff, they can describe what the information.
All right,
is.
I won't make a motion, but I will present to receive and place on file item 243088. The GPN 04224 DHS Employment Barrier Reduction Program for program year 25, the Illinois Association of Community Action Agencies, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, in the amount of $46,000. 243089 GPN 04324 DuPage Care Center Foundation Recreation Therapy Grant, program year 25, in the amount of $29,435. 243090 GPN 04424 DuPage Care Center Foundation Music Therapy Grant for program year 25 in the amount of $60,462. And item 243091, GPN 04524, DuPage Care Center Foundation Coordinator Grant for program year 25 in the amount of $31,192. So, okay, thank you. Now on to Mary Keating. Thank you.
Good morning. I just wanted to make a couple of comments on some things that were on the agenda. So on the revision to personnel budget, that is specifically for somebody to work on projects funded under the Home ARP program. Congress, as part of the American Recovery Plan, created a new affordable housing program. We would have preferred that they have just attached it to an existing program, but they created a new program with a whole new set of rules and regulations. And so we're not able to just take this funding and sort of weave it into what we're already doing, unfortunately. So we made the determination that we needed to add a staff person specifically on that project. The other thing I wanted to comment on were the community project funding items. So community project funding are, what used to be called earmarks, but they are congressionally directed funding to specific projects. What Congress did, though, was they basically are using the CDBG platform to get those funds out. And so the CDBG rules and regulations come along with it. So one of the things that has to happen is something called an environmental review, which is a really extensive list of regulations that have to be sort of checked upon for every site that has a project. There are specific agencies called responsible entities that are the only agencies for a jurisdiction that can sign off on an environmental review. And lucky us, it's the community development staff. So these projects have really expanded the workload of the community development staff. We did enter into MOUs with the entities that receive these fundings, like the Wheaton Library, I think Addison Park District. There's a couple of others. And actually, I think this year there's 7 projects. So we are also in the middle of our 5-year consolidated plan. So just a heads up that these environmental reviews have unfortunately had to take a back seat to the other mandates that we have from HUD in terms of completing our own 5-year consolidated plan. So if you hear from these agencies, just know that our staff is working absolutely as hard as they can. It's unfortunate it lined up with our 5-year consolidated planning cycle. So this is literally the busiest. The completion of the 5-year plan is the busiest time frame that we have in that division every 5 years. And so we've had to extend the agreements and just to give you a heads up. Well, I'll give you the other bad news before I give you the good news. Our phone calls into information referral have been sort of skyrocketing, and we are unfortunately down staff. So we're trying to get back to people as well as we can. We have positions posted and are not having a lot of success in recruiting. We've offered overtime to staff. We have looked for opportunities for staff who have moved on to other positions within the department to maybe come in and fill in as they can. That means that they have to, move away from their current workload. So we're trying to adapt as well as we can, but we just continue to ask people's patience. And then the good news is we were notified by the state, I think just either yesterday or this morning, that we're going to receive $57,000 towards our 211 system, which is great. That's for any expenses occurred in this state fiscal year. So we'll be able to recoup some of the funding that we had to spend on database management. And then I don't know, can we use it for staff? I'm not sure, but yeah. So that's just a nice little bump for the 211 system. So that's all I have.
Yes.
And there's shortages of staff, it seems like everywhere. With respect to the call information referral system, is there a possibility of any kind of AI computer type of generated response? So like a lot of law firms now, you'll go on and then their AI program will answer questions for you. You know, do you do marriage divorce? Do you do child whatever? And so all of that stuff goes automatically through the system. And then people get that information and identify if this is where they need to be or not be. I don't know if that's something that,
Well,
guys
people
thought
can go,
about?
if people are looking strictly for, you know, where's the nearest food pantry, those kinds of simple things, they can do that online. We also have that's through 211. You can also do 211 chat.
Right.
So we have that ability. Information referral calls are much more in depth. They're really taking a lot more information from the individuals to, and those calls can take 20 to 25 minutes. So they're, you know, we don't currently have AI capability to do sort of first level screening. That's certainly something we could talk to IT about. But it is a very intensive sort of back and forth discussion. I don't know, Gina, if you want to.
Yeah, the good and bad about this is the 211 calls, we're good to go. So those quicker calls, we're handling those, no problem. It's the intake calls for people looking for energy assistance, senior services, adult protective services. Those are the calls that are taking an exorbitant amount of time. And we have to use these databases that are either don't function well or that require duplicative entry. So.
Because we don't control the
We don't-
databases.
We don't control the databases.
We have multiple programs that use different databases. And so if you're talking to somebody about 2 or 3 different programs, you're putting them in
Yeah.
each each
Now,
database.
we have opportunity to use AI type tools
Mhm.
in the future.
Right.
But at the moment, it is duplicative data entry.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's particularly for those simpler calls, you know, the AI might be something to take time.
Yeah, the simple calls
Away
were,
from-
the simple calls were good.
yeah.
Yeah, the simple
Right.
calls were good.
And the other thing I wanted to ask you too about the home funds and the affordable housing. Have we, and I love when the federal government does this, it's always it's an unfunded mandate that you're gonna do this and we'd like to see 10% of affordable housing. Have you gotten any response from them as to if there's a gauging system and if they've actually supplied any funding to us?
You're talking about the affordable
The
housing
affordable
plan.
housing
That's a state,
Yeah.
that's a state
And that's,
regulation.
and it's
That's,
state that comes from the feds, right?
no, that's a state law.
Okay, there's a federal law on it too. So I'm just curious
not
why we
aware of
don't
that.
get any funding from them. You know, if you want these programs, why?
Well,
don't- We should get
I mean, the home funding is funding from the federal
It
government.
is.
There isn't that 10% threshold for
Mm.
that's a state threshold. That is not attached to a federal program.
It actually is. But
I-
it's all good. I'm just saying, we get all these mandates and we get no money. I mean, a little amount of money and it's like, how do we implement this? Where's the gauging system on it? You know, not necessarily for the county, but more for who's making those standards and the requirements on us. What are they doing on their end, basically?
I will follow up with Ida. That's the Affordable Housing Planning and Affordable Housing Planning Act that you're talking about, that state act. And that 10% threshold is in that act. I will absolutely follow up with Ida to determine what federal program they're attaching that to, because I'm not aware of it.
Okay, all right, that's cool. I'm just like, why, you know, a lot of money.
And we do get home funds specifically for the acquisition or construction or rehabilitation of affordable housing. So we do get federal funding.
Right.
I think we're all extremely nervous about the federal budget coming, you know, in the next couple of years as there's lots of talk of cuts of discretionary domestic spending, which is exactly where, you know, where those funds come from. So.
And I know some
Remains
of the
to be seen.
municipalities that I've talked to have seen millions of dollars in reduction in sales tax right now. So they're hurting too. So we'll see how this all works out.
Thank you, Member Gusson, Member Garcia.
Quick question for you, going back to the openings for jobs and information referral. How many openings do you have? What's your total staff?
Gina?
We currently have 2 openings. The one we have no applicants for. The other one, we are currently interviewing. And then the other opening is a FMLA open. And
Yeah, so we're down due to somebody being on FMLA. So we're down, we're down 3. Well, are the two, are they both INR specialists, or are you putting the coordinator in there as
The
well?
coordinator so
Yeah.
we have a trainer that's open,
Yeah.
and we just hired someone, so essentially we're down 3 because the one person just was hired.
And what's the total?
Yeah, what's the
What's the
total
total number of INR specialists?
3 right now.
No, the total staff,
Oh.
the total INR staff
15?
So 3 missing out of 15.
out of 15. So, yeah, that's what, 20%.
Is the
And
job
our-
posting, have you been posting that, so like online, so that we can share? and stuff?
We've posted it, we've.
We even bumped it, right?
But we
Paid to
bumped it.
bump it on
Indeed.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Okay.
we bumped it, we
And
posted
nothing.
it, we put it out to our national, we have memberships for a couple groups. We've put it out there.
And then the really challenging thing is once you fill those positions, that person has to be trained for at least a
Right.
month
Right.
before they can be on, before they can be on.
It's not an automatic.
Yeah, this is
walk-in
not a,
job.
we can't bring temps in, we can't bring people in from other departments it's not just answering the phone. It's a pretty extensive training program.
With regards to the databases that you don't control, are those the organizations?
State.
State, okay. And so why the duplicate? What are they? That's just part of their record keeping?
Well, they have, there's different eligibility, there's different, definitions, there's different, they come from different state departments. We're unique in the state in that we run all of these programs through a single entity. Other places don't necessarily run into this problem because you don't have somebody at, community contacts in Kane County, which is taking all their LIHEAP calls. They're not also taking calls for adult protective services. They're not also taking calls for rent assistance. They're not also taking calls for, signing people up for ACA. So, because we're consolidated,
That's
you know,
why,
this multiple database issue is absolutely magnified, in our unit. So
So
it's
one-
our strength that we have this consolidated, agency, but it creates a unique challenge.
my last question, is there anything that this committee can do or the county board can do to help with filling these jobs?
Filling, if you have anybody who's
Twist an
qualified.
arm. Twist an arm.
You know anybody great?
If you've got some free time,
You got some free time?
Understood.
I enjoy volunteers.
I'm
Thank
thinking,
you.
Gina, I'm thinking.
Thank you very much, Mary. Any other questions for Mary? Okay, without objection, we'll adjourn. Thank you so much, everybody.